spoke on the challenges that we face this morning, but right now I am delighted that I can speak of another aspect of creation, and that is how science itself points towards the Bible more so today than it ever has in our journey in this so-called comparison of science and Christianity and Christian faith in the Bible. And that's why I've called given the title, The Evolutionist to Creationist, because I was once a non-Christian. In fact, I was a non-Christian for quite some time. And so what I'm going to share with you is a personal life-changing journey that I'm not the only scientist that has gone through it, but many have gone through a wonderful journey. That's why I was delighted with the hymns that we sang, because they referred to it, and the message with the children, because it is such a positive message, such a beautiful message. And I hope to share with you a bit of a personal message that I hope also will be rather hopefully touching, and particularly what other scientists are going through as well, and how we can be brought to Christ even through the most unusual processes of academia and teaching done today. Okay, so I decided to become an academic, a researcher. It's not a photo of me in the past, it's a photo of me in the future. You can already see my hair going sideways on this side and down on that side. It's becoming, one of those crazy scientist pictures. Why did I become a scientist? A little bit of background there. I was raised in a non-Christian family, quite a dysfunctional family. Alcoholism was rife, violence was rife. My body still carries the scars of that upbringing. And I thought education would be my escape mechanism. That wasn't the case. I became subject in a non-Christian school to what you hear about in Christian schools. I became subject to violence there as well. I won't go into that. But by the time I was 18, I was totally dysfunctional, had no idea of the concept of relationships or love, and could not communicate, which is rather interesting to want to go to university and you still don't know anything. I mean, at the age of 16, I went to a friend's place. He was a Christian, and he sat there, and as we were talking, his father came in, and his mother shed a little tear, and she said something happened today, and he went, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that." He went up and put his arms around her and gave her a kiss. I fell off my seat. At the age of 16, I had never seen a husband and a wife kiss. In my extended family as well. So I was completely dysfunctional by the time I was going to university. Was I admitted into university? No, I was not. My grades were so low they wouldn't accept me, but I nonetheless went to a university and lined up in every queue on orientation day to be enrolled. And they kept telling me, "No, you're not to be enrolled. You can't be enrolled." And I said, "I am going to be enrolled," because it was my only future to escape not only the family, but that group of that larger family, that society, and to escape Australia, to be honest, which I did. Anyhow, of course, the tutors went and told the senior staff that there's a very strange character walking around the campus. Doesn't belong here. And an elderly chap came up to me afterwards and spoke to me, and I was nearly in tears, explaining why I had to go to university. I had to grow. I had to become someone different. He rang me that night and said he was a pastor or someone like that attached to the university, and under Act so-and-so I was admitted. I was delighted until he said, "Now you're unlike the other students. You have to go and earn an income to pay for all the fees. You are not a free student." I went, "Oh, are you kidding me?" But I did. I got a job in the steelworks, used to do double shifts 6 days a week and then work Sunday as well. Paid for my education as I went through that way. Did I pass the first few courses? No, I had to learn how to study. So I couldn't mix with 18-year-olds who all went to the pub and drank all the time. I had to mix with really old people, those who were 21 years of age. Old people who had a bit of stability about them, and I could learn to study there. So what did I become? I became a physical scientist, an earth scientist. I wanted to go out and study landscapes and floods, and I became a flood scientist. I chased floods is what I wanted to do all around the planet. Sediments, fossils, and I'll touch on that a little bit today, and even microbes. And why did I want to go into the field, into these remote places and do all this sort of stuff? Because I just didn't want to mix with other people. I'll be honest. I wanted to be out there by myself. The only other dysfunctional people out there, the only other people out there were equally dysfunctional. They were biologists. And my wife is not here. She's a biologist. Otherwise, I'm walking back to the Sunshine Coast afterwards. But I had a good time, but I did want to leave this country because in those days, nobody helped you as they do now and support you when you've been subject to both family violence and teacher violence as well. And so I took off overseas. I spent 10 years in China. I did not go as an expatriate and earn an expatriate's income. I went as a local. Basically tried to learn Cantonese, all the rest of it. And it was fascinating. I loved it. What was I doing there as a non-expatriate, non-foreigner? I was trying to work out, who am I? What's my purpose in life? I went to Finland to do the same. I spent a couple of years in Finland. I thought that's the furthest I can get away from Australia. It's just a random country I decided to go and work in. So I went to Finland for a couple of years. And there I did adjust very well to the people in Finland. You know why? Because the Finnish men there don't say anything at all. They're exceptionally quiet. And if you're a young lady and you ever meet a Finnish male in the future and he says to you with a sort of almost a Russian accent, he says, "I love you." You need to understand that's the only time you're ever going to hear that, ladies. They only say it once. It's actually been a documentary done on that, how Finnish men only say it once. And then when asked, well, what happens when you don't love her? Well, then I will tell her I don't love her. It was a fascinating fact. I was sitting in a sauna one day and there was a pastor in there and he said, they roll their R's, by the way. They go, Rr. So my name is Ron. And they always pronounce their first vowel. So it's not Helsinki, it's Helsinki. Okay, so my name was Ron. He said, Ron, you are a good Finnish man. I said, I'm a good Finnish man. How come I'm a good Finnish man? He said, because Ron, we have sat there for 1 hour and you have said nothing. So I loved my travel around the world. I was prepared to work for anybody. Did I work for Gaddafi? Yes, I did. Not as a terrorist, by the way. I worked for him in the flood and landscape management and all those sorts of things and so on. I went to Peru, swam in the Amazon, loved it. Put my head underwater, saw the piranha, loved it. You're all going, that's impossible. You watch too much television if you think piranha eat humans. They don't. That's a myth created by Jacques Cousteau, who wanted more money to do research. Now, there is a new species that has only recently been discovered in Africa of a piranha that do like a little nipple of humans. They will bite. But in the Amazon, they don't. So you can put your head underwater. Why? Because you're too tough, you're tasteless, all the rest of it. So I love Peru. Did the piranha eat me? No. Did I eat them? I loved it. Oh, beautiful fish with a Peruvian sauce. Loved every element of it. Pacific Islands, loved working there in the Cook Islands and so on. And in these places I traveled, I met Christians. And I felt very uncomfortable with Christians. Because why? I had a father who said he loved me, but that's not the way I was treated. I had teachers who said they loved me, but that's not the way I was treated. So when you come to me and tell me you have a father who loves me, I really wasn't interested in hearing that story. I decided one day, I went in the Cook Islands, I thought we'll go to a government meeting. So all the ministers are sitting there and they go, let's pray. And all their heads went down. I thought, what? The ministers of a government are praying? What's going on here? I had to lower my head and try, what on earth is happening in this country? So what happened? I thought, I better go find out what's happening. So I thought I'd go to a local church, which was a beautiful white building. And I went in there and tried to act like a Christian. Well, of course, you can't act like a Christian. They pick it up straight away. And during this magnificent song, the Cook Islander has a beautiful singing style. This huge Cook Islander footballer behind me reached out, put his hands on my shoulders and began to rub them like this. I say, chill, bro, just chill. Hey, just chill, bro. And I'm going, what? I can't hit him. What is going on here? I'm feeling so tense. Chill, bro, chill. So I met Christians wherever I went around the world and I loved it. South Africa, chased by elephant there, rogue elephant. I was chased by many things, but because when you're out in the field, you're in the wilderness. When you're studying the Amazon or the wild rivers in South Africa looking at floods, there's no one there really to look after you. You're out there by yourself. So in South Africa, I was sitting in an open vehicle and a rogue elephant decided to run at the vehicle. And I said, move it to the driver. And he said, no, we sit still. I said, that thing will crush us. And of course, as it got close, all he did there was simply rev the engine. I know some of you are from South Africa, just revving the engine, and he made it go, and the elephant just swung to the side just at the last moment because he realised, I think, the way it goes is the elephant realised we were not going to run, we were going to fight. So he ran straight past me, and the chap says, there you go, it all worked, let's continue. I said, no, take me back to the hotel, I need to get changed. Was I shot at? Yes. Arrested by foreign governments? Yes. Was I pinned against the wall in a terrorist attack in one country? Yes. I loved it. I was finding out who I was. I was growing up. Did I catch diseases? Yes. Hepatitis, Ross River fever, you name them. I can't even remember them. The number of diseases I caught and infections I caught. Now you talk about COVID. I'm not interested. Sorry, I've been through all of that. And so it was all interesting. But the fascinating thing in all of that is I entered into a world of research as I travelled the world, going to universities in Finland and elsewhere, China. I was at Chungmandaho in Hong Kong for many years. And what I was taught and what I was told to teach is that sediments, landscapes, floods, all of those sorts of things, they all, and fossil studies, everything, point to the concept of evolution. Not to the Bible. There's very little pointing to the Bible when I first began my journey. But as I began my journey, and I'll share a little bit of it now with you, what I found out there was different to what I'd been taught. Very different. When you travel the world globally, and there are only some of the countries, I went to Russia, mistakenly jumped on a troop train when I thought it was a passenger train. Oh, was I in so much trouble there. Fortunately, my sister, who has a sense of humour, was travelling with me. She pulled off one of the caps of one of the officers, put it on her head, and walked down with all the soldiers and said, passports, give me your passports now. They roared laughing, pulled the emergency button and threw us off, so we got away. They thought it was good humour from an Aussie. But everywhere I went, I kept seeing evidence of a great flood because I became a flood expert. I was travelling the world, measuring floods all around the world. But I'm going to tell the story of how I became a creationist and a Christian, more importantly. I became both at the same time. Actually, I became a creationist before I became a Christian. That's a bit weird, isn't it? But I did. I'm going to do it by a little journey with fossils because I thought fossils will be good. But I thought, let's just have a look, first of all, at what science is and how you interpret fossils and so on. Two types of science. We all think science, as by the media, is factual. No, it's not. That's if only it's experimental and you can replicate and duplicate. So if I gave you a chemical experiment, I walked up to you with all the laboratory equipment, timing, chemicals, and you followed exactly my procedure, would you get the same answer? Yes, you will, if you follow my procedure. Exactly. If you don't, I'm going to question you and look at your procedure. But if you follow my procedure, you will get it. But that's not the way most science works. In most science, we only have scattered pieces of information. So when the 74 flood hit Brisbane and I got a couple of measurements, but not enough, could I go to the Brisbane City Council and say, let's replicate that flood. Let's open up the dam again, flood the city. This time I'll be ready with all my equipment. Is that going to happen? No. When you're a geologist, you look at some rock over here and a rock a couple of 100 kilometres away, and you've got to come up with a story. Were you there when those rocks were laid down? No, you were not. Same with fossils, same with biology, same with astrophysics. We're not there, therefore we can't duplicate and replicate. Therefore, what do we use? We use interpretation. We think of a connection. We haven't proven it. We think of it. And being an academic, I'm just going to stress this point really by testing you. I'm going to put you to a test. Here's your first exam today. I'm going to give you this challenge. I'm going to give you, since I've heard a South African voice or in South Africa voice somewhere, I'm going to give you a South African example. I'm going to send you to South Africa. I'm going to give you $1 million research grant from a university. I'm going to ask you to find some dinosaur fossils and bring them back to me and tell me what you think. And you go over there and you've done all this research. You found a lot of common fossils, but you found one dinosaur fossil just over here. And it's a certain shape, size, density, colour, everything else. Now, a number of metres later, over this way, as you walk over this way, you find a very similar fossil, remarkably similar. Shape, size, colour, density, weight, all of those sorts of things. And you come back to Australia, and I'm going to go, what did you find? Because I gave you $1 million to go and do research, and you're going to say, I found 2 fossils. Put your hand up if you're going to tell me they belong to the same dinosaur. Nobody? Okay. Put your hand up if you're going to tell me they are not of the same dinosaur. 1 down here, 2. Congratulations. Fantastic. Write a paper together, publish it in a journal. I'll seek your promotion as well. We get more grants. We're going to go fantastic. You're all looking at me strangely. Here's the other question you didn't expect to hear. Put your hand up if you've not yet put your hand up. Come on. Okay, so I gave you $1 million to go to South Africa to do science. You find 2 dinosaur bones. You come back and you tell me, I don't know. Do you think that's the way academic world works? Do you think I'm going to give you more money? Do you think you're going to hold you, or you want more money? Yeah. Do you think that I'm going to help promote you and we publish? How are you going to publish? I don't know paper. It's not done. It is not done that way, ladies and gentlemen. You will come back, and do I know whether you're right or wrong? No, I don't. I will simply accept it. That's the way academia works. It has to. If you do not publish on the basis of a grant, you have lost your position. Guarantee it, you're out of here, because your purpose is to bring it in. So, let's look at fossils then and have a bit of fun with all this fun. I just want to drive that message home. Why? I want you, next time the media says science has discovered this new thing, and you go, you have to ask the question, can we duplicate it and replicate it and see if it does work? Or is it somebody's idea? Somebody says something about a black hole, we've discovered it. I want to ask you the question, can that person go out, duplicate that black hole, change some of the parameters, shift it all around, and let's see if the black hole behaves differently? No, you can't. Let's not even pretend it's factual. It is an idea. It's an interpretation. That's what it is. So, let's get into some fossils. I thought with younger folk here, we could look at some dinosaur fossils, have a bit of fun with that. How are fossils created? Well, you want to know about that, don't you? You got a dinosaur. Oh, okay. How are dinosaurs created? Let's use fish because, how fossils created rather. Fossils are created, most fossils are actually marine fossils. They come from the oceans. So let's put a fish out there, a lovely little fish, happy as, swimming around, enjoying. You've got a fossil book. Oh, okay. I get to colour in later. There's a happy fish. What's the fish going to be unhappy about? It's called sediment, which is really dirt. That's the big word today, sediment. Dirt is coming down, washed away from the land, comes out, changes the temperature, viscosity of the water, all those sort of things, oxygen content, all the rest. And what happens? The fish is panicking because it could be buried. It's not happy now because it's buried. It's dead. But once it becomes a fossil, it will become happy. Okay? It will become happy. And there's a reason for that. It gets a new name, Rhonicus nellicoritis. Because I found it, therefore I'm putting my name on it. Here's the point. What creates a fossil? Christians agree with the secular world, with anyone. We're all the same plate here, okay? We're all on the same level. How are fossils created? They're buried, the animal or the plant or even a footprint is buried rapidly and deeply. It creates temperature and pressure that creates a fossil over time. Needs to be done fairly fast too, by the way. So, that's all we need. Lots of dirt. Do we have lots of dirt? Well, we must have lots of dirt because there's a fish in total fossilised form. What happens when a fish dies in a river? We had that example in the Murray-Darling, a couple of years back. What did all the fish do? They floated. There was no sediment put on top of them. So did they become fossils? No. They just rotted. They degraded, they were eaten, they were predated, all that sort of stuff. They didn't become fossils. So we make an assumption here that there has to be lots of sediment. Another one. That's cool. And you look at this. Here's Toowoomba during the event a few years back, and we go, wow, lots of sediment. Is there lots of sediment, or is that your interpretation? You see, your automatic reaction is there is. There's a construction site. Is there lots of sediment? Your reaction could be, well, yes. Yes, by concentration there's lots of sediment. But I'm going to ask you a question. Will all that sediment get deposited in one spot? Will it build up deeply? No, it'll go over vast areas. There I am in the Cook Islands chasing sediment. They wanted about the coral reef, whether the sediment would destroy the coral reef. All of that's interesting. But how much sediment do we actually have? We have over 10,000 gauging stations around the world. We've been doing this for 70 years. Let me give you some quick statistics that should shock you. Number one, the oceanic sedimentation rates. How much sediment gets dropped on the ocean floor? Up to a maximum of 50 millimetres in 1,000 years. Even the most incredibly places where sediment is deposited, that's it, ladies and gentlemen, 50 millimetres. Over 1,000 years. Do you think that a fish is going to lie there for 1,000 years and wait for this amount of sediment to be placed on top of it? I love it. That amount of sediment, would that create a fossil? No. You could not fossilise a cockroach with that. It can't be done. Why? Because the deposition has to be rapid, not slow. What about we come closer into shore? Don't even try to understand that. It's a continental shelf. But the sediments near the river mouths like Keppel Bay, in Rockhampton and so on, look at the rates. 400 millimetres in 1,000 years. Will that fossilise a cockroach? No. So how do I fossilise a T-Rex? What about mangroves? You think that's got to be a lot of sediment. Why? Because you sink into it. But it's not. Global studies, hundreds of them, if not thousands, 3.6 millimetres a year. Wow. Could I fossilise a cockroach with that? No. Suppose I've got 10 centimetres, 20 centimetres. Guess what? Mangroves will die. It's not the way it's done. So I began to see this wherever I went around the world. I studied floodplains. And we can put some dates on, like 1900, 1700, and all that sort of stuff. You wonder, how do we put those dates on? How do we get those dates accurately? Guess how we got them? By litter. Guess what's a good indicator of the age of sediment? A Coca-Cola bottle. Because they've changed over time, have they not? Another feature is cigarette butts, by the way. At one period of time, cigarette butts would not disintegrate. Another time they did. And they changed them from, I'm not a cigarette smoker, so I don't know. But they changed it from a cork to something else. We can actually map that in the sedimentary structure and put a date on that sedimentary layer. But look at the figures, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. Fiji picked up a 3.2 centimetres in 1 year in one location. Wow. Can I fossilise a T-Rex with that? No. Can I fossilise a cockroach with that? No. Something can dig that up. The largest amount of sediment found and published was 10 centimetres in New South Wales at a major event. And guess what? I discovered that. So I became the world's expert in dirt. And I have travelled the world all these years now, being able to declare New South Wales is the dirtiest state on the planet. We agree. Thank you. My friend said to me, well, what about tsunamis? Well, you don't see it, but after the Red Cross go in, helicopters go in with flood geologists and flood landscape people. And guess what? The big one, the biggest in history that we've recorded in Indonesia a few years back, 10 centimetres. Wow. You think a tsunami must do more than that. No, that's a Hollywood movie again. It's an energy wave, not a physical wave. It only turns physical when it actually gets to shore. How do I know that? Because I saw a tsunami in the Cook Islands. I was working for the New Zealand government. They said, Ron, there's a tsunami coming. Let's all rush down and have a look at it. I thought, are you people crazy? They said, no, because in the Cook Islands, the bathymetry goes straight up like that. So the wave has no time for the base of the energy wave to actually begin to form a physical wave. And it came rolling in. It was about that big. And everybody was cheering. And I was looking at it and going, wow, I've seen a tsunami. 10 centimetres is the maximum ever recorded in the world's largest tsunami. So you see where I'm at now? As a scientist, I was really very confused. What did I discover? So how could I explain, for example, there, 1.5 million square kilometres of sediment deposited tens and hundreds of metres deep with 1 billion fossils in it. Nothing like that is recorded today in any process of floods or sediments. So I began to think, that's not a local flood. That's not a regional flood that could do that. No way even a flood of the continent of North America could do that. That had to be global. And I looked at much other evidence of landscapes. I won't even talk about that. But in the end, I became quite challenged because what I was seeing is that sediments and fossils are abundant over the whole planet. Go to South Africa, you'll find another plateau with another 1 billion fossils. They're everywhere. So whatever happened in the past happened globally. Number two, the sediment supply today cannot explain what happened in the past. Therefore, the very foundation of evolution is false because evolution argues that the processes in the past are the same as today, or the processes today are the same as the past. That's the foundation of it. But that's not what the evidence shows us at all. And basically, I came to the conclusion, as a secular scientist, that fossil formation had to be by a global catastrophic event. All of the landscape people and flood people who travel with me around the world from different countries all came to the same conclusion. But as non-Christians, they said to me, Ron, we agree. A catastrophic global flood occurred in the past, but do not mention this in universities. You will lose your job. Interesting. They're non-Christians today, but they say the same thing. Just to quickly map that up, do any of the paleontological studies of fossils support the idea that a global flood did occur and the fossils actually were created by a global flood? The answer is yes. University of Queensland tried a study of burying crocodiles, baby crocodiles, in 20 centimetres of sediment, and guess what happened? They bloated and burst out. 20 centimetres was not enough to hold it down. Isn't that? CMI would not let me draw a cartoon for our magazine when I published the results of this, because I wanted to draw the PhD student standing on the fossil trying to hold it down, you know. They wouldn't let me do that. They said, no, just write the article, so that's in a magazine. The Canadian government took a whole lot of pigs outside, dumped them in the ocean, and came back years later. There they are, they've all been eaten. But are they fossils? No. What's missing? Sediment. Where's the dirt? Well, we know there's no dirt because we've measured it all around the world. In other words, it cannot be put under pressure or temperature. And then the most fascinating study came out a couple of years ago, and I wrote a paper on this. It's in the Creation magazine. The best one I've ever come across. For 20 years, they've been taking pieces of lizards and squashing them under high pressure and temperature overnight for 24 hours between two pieces of concrete. And every time they opened it up, what did they find? Liquid. Liquid. What are you made of? Predominantly liquid. So then one of the scientists thought, well, we find fossils in these flood sediments. They're flood sediments. Let's wrap up a lizard in a flood sediment and then put it under pressure. And guess what happened when they opened up the next day? Fossils. They fast-tracked the fossil formation. Where did the liquid go? Into the sediment. The sediment absorbed the liquid and allowed, therefore, a fossilization process to occur. Isn't that incredible? Now, this points to the fact that it has to be incredible temperatures and pressures. In other words, you can't have 20 centimetres, 30 centimetres. You need metres or hundreds of metres, tens of metres or hundreds of metres. So I was left in a quandary then. But there's something else you might like, especially the young people. There's a little reptile dinosaur. How were fossils created? I want you to notice something unique about that fossil. When we find them intact, they invariably have their neck arched, like that. Why? Because they drowned. Have you not noticed that before, that things drown are seeking air? A bird that drowns will have its neck arched, but one on the road won't do that. They drowned. How else do we know they drowned? Because they were fossilised with fish. There are thousands of these images. In other words, that's where it's all at. Now, look, I haven't got time to go any more into that. I just want to get back to the personal journey. You want to go and read all that stuff? Truckloads there. You want more information? Go to our website. We have over 13,000 articles available to you free of charge. Copy them, use them in your assignments, share them, do what you like with them. There's this engine, there's a search engine. Do not type the word flood in. You'll get 2,000 articles. Type in flood, how, when, evidence, all those sorts of things. What's the site called? Creation.com. Is that easy? It's easy. It's all for you. Did I find writing for it difficult? Yes, because I'm used to writing for scientists, not in a community magazine setting. I've published many articles in journals, had him accepted straight away. Did Creation Ministries International accept my first article? No, I had to rewrite it 4 times to make it community-based. The other thing that's interesting for you, if you really want to keep up to date with a lot of information, are these things which are down here. They are simple bookmarks with a code on them. You click on that code. What it'll give access to is info bites. We send out about once every 2 weeks. They're little 2-page reports for the public, not for scientists at all. Might talk about anything from NASA to a dinosaur to a movie, anything like that. And it gives you access to our entire site as well. So might be useful just to take one of those home, go on to the site, have a good check, have a good look around. And if you want more information, this site here will give you lots of information. So you can use that for training of kids and all the rest of it. Okay, so I used a little bit of this morning. God said, and behold, myself am bringing floodwaters on the earth. I had heard that in my attendance at churches all around the world as I visited churches just to see what they're up to. Did I also get asked to become a Muslim? Yes. A Taoist, a Buddhist? Yes. What was I doing? I was looking for a purpose. The science says it's not true. But guess what? After all of 30 years of research, I said that original diagram where everything points to evolution, no, very little points to evolution today, whether it's biological, geological, flood evidence, it points to the Bible. So I was now heavily, heavily challenged. I came back to Australia. I was now kingpin. Here I am with the Premier, having a good time. I opened up a research station on Fraser Island. Kingfisher gave me $250,000 to do that. University gave me $250,000 to do that. I built a research centre there. Why did I build a research centre on Fraser Island? Because I could. I was now the professor. I was now the top boy. I could do whatever I wanted to do. And I loved it. Was I wealthy? Oh, you can't work for Gaddafi and not get wealthy, I tell you. All that's gone now, but Lord made sure of that. But at that point there, I had one challenge. That challenge was simply, I believe there must be a God because I believe in creation. So I made a comment one day at a university, I believe there's a God. Did that change things? I was called before the senior staff, told never to say that again. But more importantly, a lady came to me and just wanted to challenge me. She was a strong atheist from an atheistic family. She really challenged me. And I didn't know the answers because I wasn't a Christian. She assumed I was a Christian because I said, I believe there is a God. So what happened? She started to annoy me. And I said, like every academic, go and read the book. Now, when an academic doesn't know the answer to a question, they go and read the book. We're trained to do that. That meant go and read the Bible. So as an atheist, she did. And she came back weeks later and go, oh, I don't get so many questions. I was like, what? Well, why did God kill so many people? I went, what? What are you reading? And she said, well, I opened it up in the front. I've read Genesis, Exodus, all these sort of things. I said, no, look, I've been around long enough with these. I didn't say it that way, but, it was sort of like I didn't want to tell her anything. I said, no, you're meant to go and read them thing called the Gospels or something. And she goes, you Christians, she didn't say it to me. She just walked away going, Christians are the weirdest people on the planet. You start reading the book from the back, not in the front. So she went away and read parts of the Gospels. Now she's an atheist and she wanted to help me because there was no tutor, no lecturer, no senior lecturer. Here's a professor who runs a research centre acting like a Christian. And so she said, take me to your church. I put it off for weeks. I didn't know where to go. She walked this way, I walked that way. But eventually, she really got angry at me. She's a staff member there. So I'll find a church, fine. I didn't say it that way, but that's in my mind. Yeah, I've just been busy. So I drove around the town looking for a church. And there was one with some music coming out of it that sounded okay. So I thought, okay, I'll go into there. Sounds okay. I can at least listen to the music and not be bored. Now here's the point. That day, an atheist dragged essentially an agnostic into a church and there was not a single Christian helping us. Not one. We walked in and she was like furious. This isn't a church. Where's the organ? Where's the stained glass windows? What on earth are you doing? Just I don't know, just sit here. At the end of the service, the pastor said, everybody close your eyes, lower your heads. And he went through the wonderful invitation to give your life to Christ. And guess what? She put her hand up. I thought, an atheist has just put their hand up. But she had one eye open. And she thought, I wonder if this professor thinks I'm a good person now that I put my hand up. And guess what she saw? I'd put my hand up as well. Isn't that incredible? An atheist drags an agnostic into church and we both gave our lives to Christ that day. Isn't that incredible? Did she annoy me anymore? No. I married her. She sends her greetings. She'd love to be here. But she's gone on to do much more advanced training. She's gone to Lachlan Macquarie Institute. She was one of the 8 selected in the last round. So obviously numerous political parties would love her in there and all the rest, but she has a strong desire to serve the Lord elsewhere. So that's how we became Christians. We've loved it, served him. Both of us, by the way, she was a fully trained biologist with degrees and everything in it. The day she gave her life to Christ, she said, you know what? The book of Genesis makes sense, more so than any evolutionary argument. That day she gave her life to Christ, she accepted the book of Genesis. Isn't that incredible? And so did I. Did I keep my job after that? We were both terminated. It's the way it is. Can I publish in journals anymore? No. My name is now mud in the academic literature. Can't do that. Anyhow, I used this morning, earlier, just to wrap up this talk. There's a creator in the book of Genesis, created all this magnificent stuff we heard about in the children's section. Great stuff. Law was laid down, but God gave us a law. Did we obey the law? No, we sinned. As a result of that, will we be judged? That was actually there in the book of Genesis. We will be judged. But guess what? Did somebody else carry that for us? Yes, he did. Jesus Christ carried that for us. All of that rests on a creator God. And the one challenge we have, which I had as a scientist becoming a Christian, so many people have, even you as a Christians, do you accept the Bible as correct? Or do you try to marry it with science, with the theories of science, not the ideas of science, but the theories? Because if you take away the creator, I'll ask the same question I asked this morning. Who laid down the law if there's no creator? Nobody. If there's no law, can you sin? No. So if there is no creator God, if the book of Genesis is not true, if the flood didn't happen, if the 6 days didn't happen, and you wipe out the creator God with all his immense power and authority and love to do so, what are you left with, ladies and gentlemen? Nothing. That's why it's a challenge to us. Just remember this. As I lay there in hospital, I had brain surgery, by the way. I was told I wouldn't make it. Only a few years, about 5 years ago. And the Lord had a few things to say to me, quite interestingly. I was rushed to hospital, massive tumour, forcing the left hemisphere 7 millimetres into the right. They said I wouldn't make it to my wife. The hospital's never seen so many people come in and pray. It overcrowded the place. They had to open up other rooms. They said they've never seen it. People came in to pray, but I didn't even know who they were. But they did. On that day, when I finally went in for an operation, a miracle occurred. It did. How do I know it? Because not only is it a spiritual, godly miracle, it's today classified as a secular miracle. I'm being studied by the University of Queensland in a PhD because I'm alive today, because they say you could not have survived that particular process. What happened? The tumour was massive and calcified. They had to cut the head in half. It took 11 hours of robotics to work on me. And they said, you won't be able to read. I could read the Bible the moment I opened my eyes. My recovery was spectacular. All because the Lord had prepared me for that moment when I finally gave everything to Him. Everything. Walked away from the job. Well, not walked away, sacked, but I was seeking other jobs like it. I gave it up. Thought, no, I have to serve the Lord. I have to give my total will to Him, everything to Him. Money gone, everything. I was delighted. Here's the point. The Bible is a unified book. The Old Testament is a witness to Jesus Christ. It's talking about this. And the New Testament is the eyewitness of His majesty. Let's not separate the Old and New Testament. I know you love reading the New Testament. Let's not ever walk away from the Old Testament, particularly the book of Genesis. It lays down the very purpose of Christ. And as I lay there in hospital, this hit me. By the way, when I say I could read after the operation, which is not supposed to happen, I could only read one thing, the Bible. I couldn't read the menu. They had to come and read it to me. And the nurses were stunned, but they weren't so stunned. It was a Christian hospital. They said, we've seen this before. There's a message for you, which there was, and I'm not sharing it. It was for me. Very clear. And the nurses were all dancing and going, this is wonderful, this is wonderful. But I did get this one. Colossians 1:15-17, I think, summarises all this story so beautifully. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. He there, meaning Jesus. For by Him all things were created in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether it be thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities. All things were created through Him and for Him. And He is before all things, and in Him all things hold together. Being an academic, I've underlined, bolded and italicized the words before the word Him because I find they are the most important words to come through. Why? Is Jesus the centre of the creation? Because that passage says it was by Him, through Him, for Him, and in Him. How brilliant is that? Is that encompassing? Totally encompassing. Does it map everything in? Totally, it maps it all in. And that's what we need to accept, that Jesus is the centre of creation. Okay, to wrap it up, we have lots of materials. We don't make any money of them, by the way. I've sat on those committees many times. That's not what we make money. We make money, we produce them to give you the best opportunity to get the material at the cheapest price we can. It's a 0-0 model. No money is made there. Okay? How are we supported? Scientists travelling the world who are all now terminated, sacked from our jobs. It's simple. We have wonderful people, friends group people, the two young ladies there will look after you and help you look at those materials. They know the materials so well. Whenever we go, I've just come back from Cooper Pedy in Adelaide. There's whole teams of people over there. Help us. They pay for accommodation. They pay for food. They pay for transport. I couldn't believe it arriving at the airport and there was a VW, whatever it was, sitting there for me, donated just to be borrowed for the week, to be used. And that's how we're supported, by donations. from people who are friends groups and donations from people, either regularly putting in $10 a month or something, or at church services. We don't even ask for that, by the way. That is a wonderful gift when people do that. That doesn't make money. That's to equip you. The Answers book is the best we have, absolutely the best, because it deals with 60 plus questions that you will be asked as a Christian. And you need the answer to that. For example, who did Cain marry? Now, you guys are good. I know that because I know where I'm at the moment. Many churches, they look at me and go, never thought of that one before. And then they look at me and go, give us the answer. And I go, it's in the book. Go and buy it. There's many, many questions in there that you'll be asked as a Christian. We give simple 2-page answers for that sort of stuff. This book is brand new. It's a great one. This is for young people going to universities, how to survive a university. It's the first of these. I'd love to see more of this. You give it to a year 10, 11, 12 student, help them understand, talk them through it, help them understand what's going to happen in university. They will be mocked. They will be ridiculed by staff. They will be discriminated. They will be deliberately failed. All sorts of things will happen in universities. That's not made public, but that's what happens. This book helps them get through that, helps them understand how to communicate with academics and so on. And finally, the magazine is our number one. It's the number one magazine around the world in terms of creation. It's been going for 40 years, that has. 40 years. And in that, they're designed for you, not for us as scientists. Every one of them is balanced. Biology, geology, astrophysics, theology, kids sections, interviews with Christians. They're always balanced. Beautiful, beautiful magazines. Those, won't even worry about that. Those young ladies can look after you in that respect. What's so important about that? I'd ask you not to keep it. I'd ask you to buy it, read it, and then carry it with you until you get an opportunity. I always have opportunities because I'm still monitored consistently. MRIs, all those other things I'm not even going to mention where they probe where you shouldn't be probed and all the rest. I get them all the time as my follow-up from all of this brain surgery stuff. The point is, we constantly get messages that people were given one of these or found one of these and gave their lives to Christ. In other words, give it away. To wrap it up, ACL was caught off guard when my wife was there because she's married to a creation scientist. All these students gather once a year or twice a year now, I think. They gather with ACL to learn how to enter into society. What happened this year? One of the speakers in theology used the word billions of years. The students nearly had a revolt at an ACL conference. And they said, no, we're walking out. We don't believe in that. We believe in 6 days. Now, ACL wasn't upset with that. We agree with that. But they said that speaker said billions of years. We don't accept it. So they began to ask questions. Well, where'd you get all this? How come you're all trained in this? And then somebody looked at my wife and said, Julie Neller, are you married to Ron Neller? She said, yes. And they went, he's a creation scientist and a writer in the magazine. And so then they asked, Martin Iles asked, how many of you were raised on the magazine? How many of you had access to it? Over 50% put up their hand. That's what we were raised on. Were they given it specifically? No, it was lying around the house. They were caught off guard. You know how much of the market we penetrate? About 5%. Yet, attending the advanced Christian courses of those young people who want to become fully embedded in society as Christians and do their best, over 50% said they were raised on the Creation magazine. They were preparing themselves against a society that would not accept them. So I created this little cartoon. When one dad see the rainbow, it reminds us God will never again destroy the earth with a flood. And I just thought humorously, if no access to Christian materials, they go, really? But my Christian college or university professor said Noah's flood was confined to the Middle East. However, for those who were raised on the Creation magazine, it just lay around the house, the answer would have been yes. But how come my professors can't see that a global flood did once occur? In other words, they will not be twisted away from the Bible. That was an astounding finding for ACL, for CMI. We're all stunned by it. We have prayed for years that we impact the young people. That's the first real reply that is absolutely statistically wonderful. So if you buy it, make sure it gets deposited with kids at least. Let them grow up on that. They will love it. Thank you. Let's pray. Heavenly and Almighty Father, Creator of all that is good, all that you love. Heavenly Father, we thank you that we can share a deeper exploration of the book of Genesis. And we thank you particularly, Lord, that today, with all the advances in science and technology, we are truly beginning to uncover the truth of what you have written to us. Really began to challenge us scientists. So the simple science itself is helping many scientists become Christians. We thank you for that, Lord. We pray that this opens up our hearts, all of us, and mine included, that science is not a barrier, that scientists are people that we can actually speak to, can help become Christians. They're not a barrier, they're not something distant, they're not elite, they're not ivory towers. They are just simple people struggling just like we all are. So, Heavenly Father, we just pray that you help us in all our communications with people out there in society, students going to university and high school. We pray, Lord, that you give us the strength and the knowledge and the confidence to really speak of the glory of your creation, the magnificence of your creation, and the purpose, most importantly, the purpose of your creation. In all of these things, our Father, we just thank you and praise you through the mighty and magnificent name of Jesus Christ. Amen.